Hey, welcome to another episode of Huddle Up with Mark, the Fund Coach. I'm Mark Duncan. This episode, I want to talk about relationship fundraising, as always, but I want to talk about something that perhaps you may be challenged with, and that is securing that very, very first visit. Now, many of you are probably trying to or leaning into this relationship fundraising space. You're trying to find new donors, trying to find prospects that have capacity. Maybe you have a list, but you haven't done anything with them. In other words, taking that very, very first step to begin the process of developing that relationship. And that only happens when you have that very first visit. So are you struggling to schedule that first visit? Are there people on your list, people in your database, constituents to your organization that you are confident have capacity to give at a larger level? These could be donors that are already giving to you. Maybe they're giving, $25, $50, $100, maybe a couple of $100 to your organization. And those, relatively speaking, seem like small gifts. But if you've got donors that are giving to you on a regular basis, the likelihood is that they're waiting for you to reach out to them. That's very possible. So let's talk about what that looks like. First, you need to determine who you're going to start building these relationships with. You simply cannot build relationships with every single constituent, every single donor in your database. So you've got to narrow it down. And the first thing you need to do is to just look at criteria that helps you narrow this field. Now, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to look at people in your donor database that have been giving consecutively for 5 years or more, regardless of the amount. You want to take a look at those individuals. Second, if you are able to and you have a wealth screening tool, then you should be screening your database to determine those who have high capacity. Now, there are many products out there that you can use. I can tell you right now, the one that I endorse that is probably the most accurate is Windfall. And so, if you are interested in learning about Windfall and their product, I will have a link below for you to click and check out. And I'll also have a way for you to access it for those of you who are listening to this via the podcast. But you've got to do your wealth screening to see who among your constituents has capacity. Second are two other criteria: link and interest. So, link, interest, and ability. Ability is capacity. Link is a link to your organization. Yes, they're already a constituent of yours. They've opted into getting your newsletter, or they're donors. That's a link. But the other thing that you're going to want to look for is a link to someone you know. Maybe there's a board member that knows this particular donor or knows a number of your donors, or there's some other individual that has a relationship that is better than yours because you're just starting to work with these individuals, who can make the connection, who can door open for you. And so if there are individuals who know somebody that you know fairly well, especially if it's a board member, ask them to make the introduction. And that introduction can be done via email or by what I call tag team coffee. That means that board member, you, and the prospect get together for coffee by the invitation or at the invitation of the board member to bring you two together. And then you take it from there. If it's an email introduction, then the board member or the person who has the stronger relationship with the prospect introduces you to them via email. Now, the best way to go about doing that is for that board member or individual to reach out to that prospect first to let them know that they're going to be making that introduction via email. You don't want to blindside your prospect and have that be the very first impression that they have of you and the organization when they've been perhaps ambushed, right? It could feel like an ambush. And we certainly do not want donors to feel that way. So, link, interest, and ability. If that link isn't there, meaning a personal link isn't there, but the other pieces are there, and interest primarily has to do with interest in your mission. It doesn't have to be strong interest, by the way. That's going to be your job going forward, is to develop that interest so that it is strong. But if there is no link that can make that introduction, that can open that door for you, here's a couple of other things that you can do. Now, since they're already a constituent of yours, it would not be unusual for you to reach out to them. And the first way I would recommend you doing that is with a phone call and ask them for the opportunity to meet with you. Now, I understand that when you make phone calls, the likelihood of someone picking up, especially if it's a number they don't recognize, because today we're usually calling a cell phone and they're not going to recognize that number unless you're in their phone. I highly recommend you leaving a voicemail message and also follow up with an email to let them know that you left the voicemail. You're trying to connect the dots, because if you look at it from their perspective, the phone rings, it's a number they don't recognize, they're going to put it aside. Now there's a voicemail. Well, that number is just going to have a little dot next to it that lets them know they have a voicemail. They're likely not going to listen to it right away, but they eventually will. And it's important that you leave a message. But then that follow-up email is really what's going to be helpful, because that is where your name comes up, and you can also talk about the organization. Now, if you are leaving a voicemail, you want to be very clear but concise. Hi, my name is Mark Duncan. I'm calling from ABC Organization. You have been a donor of ours for quite some time, and I'm calling to introduce myself to you and find a time where we can perhaps get together. My number is, please give me a call back at your earliest convenience. That's it. That's as much as you need. Then you follow up with an email. After you leave the voicemail, you follow up with an email with a little bit more information. But again, you're trying to get that meeting with them. That's the objective. Okay. So now what you've just done is you've taken constituents who are either donors to the organization for 5 years or more. And by the way, I call them your loyals, and people who have capacity in addition to the link and interest, and you're going to start to reach out to those people. If you can do wealth screening, you'll be shocked to see the number of people that are already under your nose that have capacity. Now, here are some questions that you may get when you're in the process of scheduling this visit. Let's say you're able to talk to someone on the phone. You tell them who you are, and you tell them you're interested in meeting with them, and telling them, giving them an update on the organization, and that you would love to perhaps get their advice about something. And all of that is true, right? Talk about your organization, talk about the things that you're doing, and ask them what they think, right? This is going to be all part of you getting to know this prospect or this donor. Now, you may, as you're in the process of scheduling these visits and you happen to talk to people, you actually may get some questions. One of those questions may be, well, why do you want to meet with me? Because they're going to want to know. And your response should be, well, I really want to meet with you. One, to thank you for your giving over the years. I would love to give you an update on the great things that are happening here at the organization. And I would love to get your opinion on a few things as well. That is a really great way to gain the opportunity to get in front of them. And everything I've just said is 100% true. Right? You want to thank them. You are going to give them an update about what's happening at the organization. And you're going to ask their opinion or their advice, but primarily their opinion on the things that you're doing. What do you think? What attracted you to us as an organization? Why did you start giving to us? What is it about our mission that is important to you? This is an opportunity for you to learn about your prospect or donor. And you want to take advantage of that opportunity. Now, another question you may get is, and let me just be straight out, are you going to ask me for money? Now, I'm sure that if you get this question or you're anticipating this question, probably a little nervous, and I certainly understand that. But here's how you respond to a question like that. If they ask you if you're going to ask me for money, your response should be, at some point, I would love to talk with you about ways that you can support the organization, but that's not what this visit is about. And that's the truth, right? You're not planning on asking them for that big gift on the first visit. You're simply building trust, building a relationship with them. And when you start securing visits, there are a couple of things to think about as you are engaging in these relationships. First, be relaxed, right? Be as relaxed as you can. Yes, these are people who have capacity. Yes, these are people that could probably transform your organization if you are doing the work and positioning yourself in such a way that you can make an ask like that. But be relaxed. They're human beings just like you. They put their pants on one leg at a time, just like you. So remember that. Relax. They agreed to meet with you because they are already giving to your organization. There's already an interest there, and they want to learn more. You invited them to do that. And if they agree to meet with you, that is a very, very good sign, especially if they ask you that question about whether or not you're going to ask for money. And you say at some point, right? And they continue to meet with you, the likelihood of you getting a gift is actually greater now because they've asked that question. They've talked about the elephant in the room and you've addressed it in a very honest and direct way. I would also suggest that you prepare some questions. Much like I stated earlier, ask them questions about what they like about your organization. How did they get involved? What encouraged them to make their first gift? These are things that are going to be helpful to you so that you can build that rapport and that trust that will help you in the long run when it is time to ask. And finally, don't forget that when this visit is over, that you ask for the next visit right then and there. So many organizations, so many nonprofit leaders get excited, have the first visit, and it goes well. And you may say, we'll chat later, or I'll have you come out to the organization for a tour. And then you have a very difficult time following up and getting a hold of them. Why not seize the opportunity to ask for that second visit right at the first visit? Get it on the calendar. And the way you do that is by asking a simple question. When would be a good time to circle back with you? We'd love to have you come out and visit the organization and give you a tour? When would be a good time to do that? Let them tell you how much time they need between this moment and the next time they see you. And if they say a couple of weeks or a month or 2 months, then you're going to open up your phone or your calendar and you're going to look out into the future about a month or so, and you're going to pick a date and time that works for you and see if it works for them. They're likely going to have their calendar right there and can answer that question for you right then and there. And if they can meet with you on a specific date and time, get it on your calendar, and then let them know that you're going to be sending them a calendar request so that that time is reserved on their calendar. Now you've got your second visit. You should be doing this after every single visit that you have to schedule the next one. It doesn't matter how far out it is, right? If you can, if they're willing, right? Some will may be resistant to it. That's okay. We're not pushing this in any way, shape, or form. But what this does is it allows you to stay in control of the process. And you also can stay in contact with them between this visit and the next so that you maintain that momentum. Okay? So I hope this is helpful to you. Securing the first visit is really critical. And it is what it sets you on the right pace to be able to secure those significant gifts for your organization. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And as always, this fundraising thing is never about the dollars. It's about what the dollars do for the people that we serve. Thanks. And we'll see you next time.